Hello there, I'm Eric. Welcome to The Shed. In my role as an assessor, I often see learners trying to create assets for various different social media outlets. To do this, they generate different assets for each one. And it often frustrates me because there is such an easier way of doing it, using three simple basic tips in Photoshop. They are Artboards, Smart Objects, and Generate Assets. Using those three, you can generate assets really quickly. There's a fourth tip that I'll share at the end, but isn't really necessary. But anyway, let's jump into Photoshop and see what's what. So here I am in Photoshop, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file. So I'm going to click on New File, and you can see that this is already set up for 1080 by 1080p. What I'm really interested in here is this one here, Artboards. I need that to be checked, and more about Artboards as we work through. But for now, we need that checked on. Let's create that. And as we might expect, we get a square document ready to go. And it looks like any other document, except for two major differences. First of all, in the Layers panel, you can see that this is grouped together under Artboard 1. Also, it says Artboard 1 at the top left-hand corner of the artboard. Now, I like working with guides, but for this, let's turn them off, guides and clear guides. And I'm going to, first of all, change the name of this to square. And then I'm going to populate this asset with some other images. And very quickly, let's add in a background. I'm going to use this one here. We're creating assets for a fictitious company called Snot Reel. It's a coffee house that I use in various different tutorials. There we go. And I'm also going to pull in the logo. Again, this is from the libraries. So we can just quickly do that. Pop that in there, like that. And there we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an asset that shows reviews for Snot Reel from various different people. So I'm going to go and get the text tool and make a text outline or text box for this. And then I'm going to get my text and paste it in. Now this is far too big, so let's select all and then reduce the size of it. There we go, something like that. Good. Now this needs a name on it. So again, let's get the text tool, and down here, I'm just going to click down and I'll call this Adam Name. There we go. All right. Let's get the move tool. I'm also going to move this review bit down a little bit. There we go. That's not great, but it'll do for now. I think maybe that logo is just a bit too big, I think. Taking up too much space. Let's take that down, and then we can change this up a little bit to be a bit bigger. Move it around till we get it where we want it. Can even make the text then a little bit bigger. Okay, good. Let's not spend too much time on that. That will do us for now. All right, what I want to do now is I want to invoke the second tip. The second tip being smart objects. Now, smart objects work as kind of like a little bundle. If you've used instances in other software, you'll understand the concept of this. But it's one instance that then if you change that, will change the other instances of anywhere that you've used it. But we've got to set that up first. So let's set it up in this document. First one we're going to do is the Adam name. I'm going to right click and say convert to a smart object. I'm going to rename that while I'm here. I'm going to rename it to name, just so we can keep track of where's what. Then with the review itself, I'm going to come up to filter and convert for smart filters. Get a warning, I'm going to click OK. Now I do that just so you can see that you can. They work exactly the same way. All right. Now these other two I'm not going to make into smart objects, but I will make them local to this image. So right click and say either embed linked or rasterize. Might as well rasterize them. Let's do that. There we go. Rasterize the layer. Good. Now that's all ready to go. What we can do now is we can copy these into a new artboard. There's a few ways of creating an artboard. The first one, well, if you go to the Move tool and left click and hold down, you get the Artboard tool. And you can draw out an artboard if you wanted to. I don't, so I'm going to Control Z. You can also click on the artboard itself and you'll see you get these pluses, and we can click a plus and another one appears. If I was going to do it this way, what then I could do is to highlight everything, press the Alt or Option key and drag it all onto the new one. Let's undo that, because the other way we can do it, possibly the easiest way, is to highlight the artboard and press Control Command J, something that we're already used to doing for layers anyway. Okay, so now we've got a direct copy of Square. I'm going to rename this as Story. There we go. And I want to resize this. Now I've got my properties here. If you can't see your properties, you need to go to Window and down to Properties and it'll pop up somewhere. So at the moment it's 1080 by 1080, but we want it 1080 by 1920. So we'll hide like that, 1920, and there we go. I'm going to press the space bar just to navigate around a bit and then zoom out a bit. Good. Let's redo this. So I'm going to just make this a bit bigger. It may not seem like we're saving much time at the moment, but bear with me. This is going to be very helpful, I promise. Okay, let's take the name down to there and the review down to there. I did mean to rename that. I'll do that now while I'm here. Good. And I'm going to rename it down here as well. Good. Right. And then this now doesn't work really because we've now got a lot of empty space. So I'm going to get rid of the logo and get another logo in just here, which may not look quite as good, but it'll fill up some space. Taste the nectar of the bean gods. There we go. There we are. All right, cool. Let's do one more just so we can see what happens if they're not quite the same size, because everything just went on there then. Let's create one more. I'm going to Control or Command J on the story here. And again, let's change this to 1920 by 1080. Now, of course, everything now flips off, so we don't want to do that at all. We really have got all kinds of problems going on now. So you can see that actually the review and the name are off of the artboard. So we can click on both of those and drag them back onto the artboard, and Photoshop will automatically put them straight into the middle, which actually is quite helpful for us because we just need to move them across and maybe move this logo up a little bit. There we go. And we'll call this one video. Right, there we go. I'm going to press Control or Command and twirl this up, and it'll twirl them all up. And then Control or Command 0 will fit everything on screen, and we can see where we're at. Okay. So why have we made these into smart objects if we're just going to duplicate them anyway? Well, for this time, it didn't really save much time. But we can now make these into different images, and then we can change them quite easily using those smart objects as instances. Let me show you. So at the moment, they all start, Not Real is a hidden gem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down, doesn't matter which one, I'm going to come into the story and click on Review. Now in here, it opens up as if it's another document, and essentially it is, and it goes alongside our main document. It doesn't take up much space though, which is good, not in this instance at least. So I want to change this text. Can't see it very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer, pop that underneath and fill it with black. It's a temporary thing, just so we can see what's going on. On another screen, I have my reviews. So I'm just going to get another review. So where it says Not Real is a hidden gem, I'm going to go into that, highlight it all, paste it. And now it says Not Real is a coffee shop that brings out the inner child in you. Let's turn off that background layer. Now I've got a choice. I can either go up to File and then Save, or I can press Control or Command S. Either way, it works well. We don't have to worry about where it's going, where it's saving to, or anything like that. It's saving in its magical way. Let's go back to our main document, and we can see now that each one now says the new text. So we've changed all three of these in one little update. Easy as that. What about the name? Let's change the name. Let's not do it on story this time, just so you can see you can choose any one you like. We'll go to name, create a temporary layer behind, fill it with black. This time we're going to say it's by Betty, some name. And we can see now that we've got an issue in that the name is missing. Not a problem. If we go and get our crop tool, we can now make that bigger and make sure that we get all of Betty some name. Let's fill in the rest of that black so we can see it for now. Now what would be helpful here is if that some name was actually center justified, which I'm going to do now just to help us. There we go. And I'm going to pop that back on there. Good. Turn off the temporary layer, Control S, and then back we go. And you can see Betty some name, Betty some name, Betty some name. Everything has changed. Well, that's all well and good. We've managed to change each of these instances, but they're not saved anywhere as yet, only on our Photoshop document. How can we do that? Well, that's the third of my tips, which is generate image assets. And it's really easy and saves a ton of time. I use it all the time in all manner of jobs. Let's jump in. Okay. First thing we need to do is make sure that this image is saved. So I'm going to go to File and Save. Now I've got a folder already set up that says quote post, and I'm going to call this quote. And press enter. Now if I bring up the Finder, you can see that in there we've got quote PSD. That's all that's in there. That's fine. Now I'm just going to go on to each of these. I'm going to go to video and rename that just with .jpg on the end. You may recognize that as being for JPEG. So JPEG is what I want. I could quite easily use PNG or many others, but for this I'm going to use JPEG just to keep things all nice and simple. .jpeg. There we go. And then I'm going to go up to File, Generate, and Image Assets. That's all I need to do. If I go back to my Finder, you can see now that Quote Post now has this folder in it. And inside that folder, well, there's 3 JPEGs, square, story, and video, all reflecting these 3. So let's go and change this name very quickly to back to something else. Go to name, turn on that layer, and I'm going to call this one, where are we? Colin, because we're on C's now. Colin this. And turn off the background layer and save. Then back to our original. And now we have Colin this. Let's go back to our Finder. And now we have these, but now it says Colin this. So a word of caution here. It's always going to override. When you do something new, it's going to override. So we've now lost Adam to Betty and Colin. Already that has been overwritten, as it were. So if you wanted to save each one, then it's a good idea to either save it under a different name or move it out of that folder, and it won't be changed at all. If it's something that you're not worried about keeping, if it's something that changes frequently, like a review, then no harm, no foul. Just keep going and producing a new one each time. It saves you getting hundreds of useless images on your hard drive that you're never going to use again. So there we go. We've got Artboards, Smart Objects, and Generate Images. Really easy way to create simple and straightforward images for social media. Now, I did promise you a fourth, and here's the dilemma. What if we wanted to animate this? Well, we've got some options. We can either open the video editor within Photoshop. I don't really fancy that. We could go into After Effects, not a problem, but it's a bit of a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Or we can use the updated Adobe Express. That's what I'm going to do. Now, it's quite easy to say, but I know all these big tools. Why would I use something like Adobe Express? Because it's easy and it's straightforward. This is how we're going to do it. All right, back in Photoshop. I'm only going to work on square, but it would work on any of these. But let's just work on square for now. Now, at the moment, Adobe Express is in beta. So I'm going to give it all the help I can. The first thing I'm going to do is duplicate that square, just like we did earlier on, Control or Command J, and it gets hidden somewhere along the line. Let's take that over and pop it down. Let's rename this, move it. There we go. I'm going to rename this Square Anim with no JPEG or anything at the end. Okay, let's twirl this open. And what I want to do now is I want to take these out of Smart Objects. You can use Smart Objects in Adobe Express. No reason why you shouldn't. But like I say, I'm going to give it as much help as I can. If I didn't, and I know this from using Adobe Express for a while, if I didn't do what I'm about to do now, it's going to give me a few errors. So I'd rather tidy up here in Photoshop where I can do it quickly. All right. So the Smart Object here, I can right click and I want to convert to layers. Before we rasterized it, we don't want to do that because it will be flat. Convert to layers so as we keep our text. That very helpfully puts it into a folder for us. We only want this bit. So I'm going to drag that out and then delete the folder with that temporary layer in it. Let's do the same for the name. Let's create the layers. And again, take the text out that we want and then delete the folder. Now the rest is all good. We can get going on that, not a problem. Now what I want to do is take this out as a Photoshop document. Adobe Express works really well with Photoshop documents, but we can't just put .psd at the end. It's not going to work. So we have to utilize another feature of Artboards that's really very helpful. I'm going to go up to File and then Export. And then I want Artboards to Files. If you have to get images signed off, then Artboards to PDF might be helpful to you. But here we're going to go to Files. It asks us where we want to put it. I'm going to put it in our original folder. It asks us what we want to put before it, if anything. We can take that off, but by default, it puts the name of our document in there. We could always put an underscore there just to separate it from anything else. We can select here to do all artboards if we uncheck that, or we can go just for the selected one. I just want to do the selected one here. And then the file type, PSD is the one we want, but you can see we could export to all kinds of file types. PSD. The rest is fine as is. I'm going to click Run, and off it goes and does its thing. Good. That was quick. Let's again go and look inside our folder. And here we go. We go back one, and there is our quick square anim, PSD. And that's all ready if we wanted to take that and pop it into Adobe Express. Let's do that, shall we? So here we are in Adobe Express, and I'm just going to click and drag that PSD over the top and drop it down. And it's going to go ahead and convert that into a format that it understands. Now, it's not always perfect, and you might get some weird results somewhere, which is why I cleaned up our PSD to start with. But I know for a fact that something possibly is still going to go wrong. Let's open up in Editor and see. Okay, it doesn't look great to start with. In fact, it looks quite worrying, but let's not worry. That white bit is coming from here, from this layer with the logo on it. The text layers are absolutely fine. So we've got a couple of choices here. We could try and remove the background, and that's going to do an all right job, but doesn't do the whole image, which is fine. What I'm going to do is click on it and press delete, and it's gone. Now I've got that from my libraries, of course, so I could always go back into my libraries and then just get a new logo. That was easy. There we go. Done and done. Now, the text looks good. It is editable still. We can change the font if we want to. However, our Colin name has now been squished up. Not a problem. Open that up. There it is. We're done. Now we can make some final adjustments, change colors and anything we like, really. It's an editable document. But all I'm going to do is add some animation. So let's go to the logo first and animation. And we've got in, out, and while it's on screen. Let's go to in, and well, it's our logo. We want it to pop, right? And we want to make it pop quite intensely. Bam. Good. The text here, animate, and I'm going to choose my favorite animation to come in, which is bungee. There we go. Definitely more bounces. Nice. Good. And then finally, the person's name. Well, I don't want this to distract from the important bits, which is the positive review and the logo. So I'm going to make this a gentle fade, just so it whispers its way in and Colin doesn't take over our animation. Now, as soon as I added an animation, you can see down the bottom, we've got a play button. So let's play this through, and there it is. And they all come on screen all at one time. Not great, but not bad either. Let's edit the timeline, because now we can go, all right, Colin, well, I'm going to click on this button so I can see what's going on, so I can see the different layers. Colin, you're going to come in last. Before that, I want the text just after the logo pops in, and then the logo is right from the beginning. There it is. Okay, let's take this back, play it through. There we go. And then Colin comes in whispering at the end. And all I've got to do then is go to download and download it as an MPEG-4. And I can put that wherever I want it. So there we are. We've used artboards, we've used smart objects, and we've used generate image assets, and then taken a PSD by using artboards into Adobe Express to do a very, very quick animation. Can be more simple, right? That's it. If I've missed any tips or tricks, please let me know down in the comments. I really would like to know. If you use any of the techniques I've shown you here, let me know. I'd love to see what you're doing with it. Until next time, thanks for joining me. Bye-bye for now.